Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to this second episode of Smart Outsourcing Talks. And today we have uh, our guest is Kenji Kuramoto. And Kenji, welcome to this Smart Outsourcing Talks.
Thank you very much for having me. Very glad to be here.
Yeah. So just to give you an introduction of Kenji, though he doesn't need an introduction, he's a poster boy in accounting fraternity, but he's a founder and CEO of Acuity, and Acuity provides online bookkeeping, accounting, tax, CFO service to the innovative entrepreneurs. Acuity has been named one of the Accounting Today's top firms for technology, top firm for to work for, and it's a certified B Corp corporation. Kenji is co-founder of Equity Invest, which makes seed-level investments in accounting technology, SaaS, crypto, and fintech companies. And Kenji has served as a board member in the Entrepreneurs Organization, as it is known, the EO. Um, he has served on the board of Staple House Restaurant, Refugee Coffee, and many other social ventures. So he's very active on the social side as well. And of course, in the accounting professional forums, he has been on the advisory board or committee of Zero, Gusto, FreshBooks, Expensify, Intuit, and you name it, and he is there everywhere. He has been also awarded 40 under 40 by the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and also the TI Top Entrepreneur. He was also recognized as a top 50 cloud accountant by HubDoc. So many achievements, Kenji. How do you manage all this?
Well, I think the key, as you know, to managing all of this is having a great team, having great colleagues to work with so that you can do all these things, right? Otherwise,
Mm,
if I were just doing it by myself, I'd be a mess. So it's
mm, mm,
the key is having great colleagues and a great
yeah.
team who I'm incredibly grateful for. So
Yeah. Okay. And Kenji, take us to little about your journey. How do you started? Because I see that you started with the Acuity CFO first, and then Acuity
yeah,
Accounting. So how did it all
sure.
start?
Well, it all started. I got an accounting degree when I was in college, and I went to go work for one of the big public accounting firms right out of college. I worked for Arthur Anderson when they were still around
Mm,
in their audit practice, was there for a
mm,
number of years, and then went to a technology company where I was their controller and then CFO. And so that was probably about almost the first 10 years of my life, kind of in global public accounting, and then
mm,
in working inside of an accounting firm as a CFO. And
mm.
honestly, Manoj, I was a little burned out. I was tired. I was burned out. I was very much reconsidering whether accounting was the right profession for me. I just was not very
Oh,
happy. Yeah. And
okay.
so I thought, before I just give this up, why don't I just go and, do something that I want to do? And I knew that what I wanted to do was
Mm,
support other entrepreneurs. I liked
mm,
entrepreneurs. I like startups. I like tech
mm,
companies.
mm,
And so I wanted to be around more entrepreneurs and help small businesses. But I
mm,
also knew I developed over 10 years, a decent
mm,
accounting background. So that
mm.
became the birth of Acuity, where
Okay.
and
Mm,
initially we called it Acuity CFO, to your point,
mm, mm,
because when I first launched, we were providing fractional or part-time CFO services toward
mm,
entrepreneurs, mostly tech companies. And
mm,
so that's where we started with just fractional
mm,
CFO services. We were called Acuity CFO.
mm,
And then as time went on, our clients started asking us for more things beyond just CFO services. They'd say, "Oh,
mm,
I need." Sometimes they couldn't articulate what they needed, but we
mm,
knew things like, "Oh, they need a controller." So we
mm,
added a controller practice. And then
mm,
um, a very frequent challenge for those of us who've worked in advisory is you're attempting to do advisory work for clients, yet the
mm.
underlying data, their books, are a mess. And
Yeah.
so that used to be a problem because you really
Mm,
don't want to go in at a CFO's rate and go clean up
mm,
the books and do bookkeeping. It's
yeah.
just too
Mm,
expensive. It's not very efficient. And
mm,
so we ended up developing a virtual bookkeeping practice. And
Hmm.
once we took a look at that, that was about 8 or 9 years into Acuity.
Hmm.
We kind of looked and thought, we're more than just CFO services these days. We're actually doing all kinds of accounting services. So effectively, we just dropped the CFO name at the end of Acuity and became just
Hmm.
Acuity.
Hmm.
And at this point now, we've grown to where Acuity has 4 different service offerings. We do have that historical CFO offering, which is kind of our
Hmm.
heritage practice. We have
Hmm.
also controllers. We have bookkeeping, as I mentioned. We added a tax practice a number of
Hmm.
years ago too. So now we
Hmm.
think of ourselves as a full stack kind of CAS practice, that outsourced
Hmm.
accounting practice, to where
Hmm.
anywhere, whether it's a CFO need or all the way down to a
Hmm.
bookkeeper need,
Hmm.
anything in between the levels we can handle, and also help
Hmm.
on some basic tax compliance. So that's how
Hmm.
we started. But yeah, it came
Hmm.
about honestly through frustration, through me being tired and me being burned out. And I
Hmm.
just wanted to build something that I wanted to do. And the
Hmm.
funny thing about doing that, I think we as entrepreneurs find, is that you build something for yourself, and
Hmm.
then just to kind of make yourself happy. And the next thing you know, other people kind of join and go, well, actually, I'm interested in that too. And it's
Hmm.
surprising, as the founder, you look around and realize that that thing that you built for yourself also appeals to other accountants too. And so you kind of
Yeah.
build a little bit of a community. And so
Hmm.
we've been grateful to do that with a great set of colleagues
Hmm.
in the US, and expanded over
Hmm.
the team and globally, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's now Acuity today is we've been operating for 20 years now, and have served
Very
thousands
good.
of entrepreneurs, and I
Oh,
really enjoy doing that. So it's been a lot of fun.
yeah. Yeah. Great. Great to hear this. And in fact, accounting is known as a very boring profession. So. And I see that you and Matthew keep creating a lot of excitement around that. So you had that, I saw one show which was drink on something. So, so in this boring profession, how do you create this glamour?
Well, again, I think this comes back to doing things that make you happy, right? And I
Mm,
think
mm,
there are times, I think in any profession, you can get bored. Things can be routine and become monotonous.
mm,
And maybe in accounting, we suffer from
mm,
that a bit more than others, because a lot of our work by its nature is repetitive. It's very consistent.
yeah.
And in
Mm,
some cases, that brings, I think, that stability and consistency is
mm,
reassuring, is nice for
mm,
some of us. But
mm,
over time, if the work only stays that way, you do get bored. You get bored
mm,
and you're not very
mm,
fulfilled. And so I think you look for ways
mm,
to have fun. And
mm,
I think that's one of the there's many, many challenges
mm,
to being an entrepreneur, to being a founder, to running your own firm. There's many, many
mm,
challenges.
mm,
Yet I hope that one thing that fellow firm owners out there remember is that you do get to do things your own way, though. That's right.
yeah.
The good side
Mm,
is so if you choose to have fun and to bring joy into the profession,
mm,
our good friends Kristen Keats, who's a good friend
mm,
of both of ours, always talks about bringing joy to the accounting profession. That is one of the
mm,
things that we have control
mm,
over, we have license over as
yeah.
a firm owner. And so, whether it's a silly thing like Matthew and I doing our podcast, we
Mm,
did for years, Drink While You Think, which was just
yeah.
us having a beer at the end of the week, talking usually about mistakes we made inside the firm.
Mm, mm,
And we just enjoyed doing that. Or
mm,
whether it's traveling to go
mm,
visit our colleagues and team members, or you know he does a good job in referring to Matthew. I've been on one or
mm,
two of these like silly TikToks and things like this that our marketing team does. I think
mm,
that we can be lighthearted. I don't think there's anything
mm,
wrong with, in fact, nothing wrong at all with accountants showing personality and having fun. I've seen some of
mm,
your social posts, Manoj, as well
yeah.
too. And like,
Mm,
whether you're
mm,
out, playing pickleball or golf or doing things, I think these are important. I
mm,
think it's important to
yeah.
show that we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
full
Mm,
lives and we can have fun. I think
mm,
that's important for
mm,
firms to be that way. So I think,
mm,
yes, we use that actually more frequently than people would realize,
mm,
that if we're not having fun, then we're really
mm,
making a mistake now,
yeah.
because it's just too
Mm,
hard otherwise. And if we're not
yeah.
having fun and we're
Mm,
not happy
mm,
in what we
mm,
do, then we need to take a serious look at what it is that we are doing. So that's always a focus of ours. Like, are we going to have fun doing this? And we usually find a way to have fun no matter what.
Yeah, interesting, and that's what makes even the business interesting. As you said that, accounting is little repetitive, boring, same compliance dates and stuff like that,
Right.
so people also get burned out over a period of time. So, having some
They do.
fun
They do.
elements, like at Finsmart, we have all the time like fun Fridays, and we load their calendar with a lot of events, festivals, celebrations, so that keeps them little charged
That's
up,
awesome.
happy, and stuff like that. Yeah,
That's awesome. I
so
mean, again, I don't think those take
mm,
much time at all, right? To add those to your practice or your firm, and
yeah,
it gives people moments of happiness and joy. That's great that you guys
yes,
do
yeah,
that.
and that's what they remember actually. So if you look at somebody exiting, and what is the memories they have, is these are all the memories that they will carry. So the boot camps,
That's
or the picnics together, and
absolutely.
stuff like that. Those are the things they'll remember. So Kenji, talk to me about from Acuity CFO, where you were into advisory, so must be a smaller teams to now full stack accounting practices. So of course it's people heavy, right?
It is,
So
yes.
so how did you kind of a maneuver from a lighter firm to now what you have been? It's a very people heavy firm.
Yeah, I think that what we experienced at Acuity is what most accounting firms experience, and it's happening, I think, even more over the last few years. And that's typically that the demand is greater than the supply, meaning there is so much work available to all of
Mm,
us. And I think it's
mm,
why we as a profession collaborate so much with other firms instead of
mm,
competing with them, because
mm.
there's more work than any of us can handle. And
Right.
so really it's what we're all trying to do is just meet the type of demand that we as a firm want to service. And so I think every firm owner has to ask themselves, well, what type of firm do I want to be? And there are some wonderful firms that are very kind of boutique and very small by design that serve a very intimate, specific customer base.
Mm,
And I know some of the best firms out there that are like that. And there are other firms that say, hey, I want to scale and I want to grow.
mm,
And we happen to be in that category of a firm that wanted to scale, wanted to grow.
mm, mm,
And so finding clients has never really been that big of a challenge for us. We've always been able to find
mm,
clients. It's finding
mm,
people, finding talent.
mm,
And so,
mm,
as I mentioned, when we started, it was just a firm for me and a few other people, just because we wanted to do something a little bit different that made us happy.
mm, mm,
And we started finding other team members, other accounting people who wanted to work under our model. And what was different about our model initially, which is more
mm,
common now,
mm.
is that all of our team members we allowed to work for as many or as few hours they wanted to. They did not have to come and
Oh,
work with
wow.
us for 40 hours a week. And so what we found there were a lot of accountants who were burned out, who were tired,
Mm, mm,
who were looking for a reasonable accounting job that they could say, hey, I only want to work 30 hours a week. I only want to work
mm,
20 or 40, whatever it might be. And
mm,
so we were able to attract some really good talent of people who said, well, I don't want to go back and work at Deloitte or E&Y, not to pick on them, or any firm, you
mm,
name it, because those are
mm.
60, 70 hour a week jobs,
Yeah. Mm, mm.
or corporate accounting tended to be the same way.
Yeah.
They were, for whatever reason, maybe if they had a family, they were trying to support, they had other interests in their life, they wanted a different set of
Mm,
hours. And so we started really going out to market saying, hey, as long as you're a talented accounting person, we don't care however many hours you work. It's all up to you. And so we started
that's
attracting
fantastic.
talent.
And that's
And that
fantastic.
that was the
Yeah.
first thing that
Yeah.
probably got us to start growing a
Mm,
little quicker,
mm,
where we
mm,
became a little bit known as, hey, I think those Acuity folks, they're the firm that lets you pick
mm.
your hours. And that was
Ah,
pretty novel and unusual,
yeah.
again, 2 decades
Mm.
ago. And
And this was
so
which year? Oh, 2 decades ago.
this is probably, I'd say, anywhere from 15, 18, 15 years ago. So over a decade ago,
Oh.
right? A long
Mm,
time ago, we
mm.
were doing
Yeah.
this. And
Mm,
that initially got us our first wave of employees and of team
mm,
members. And
mm,
then we kept growing and we kept growing. And The next big milestone that helped us achieve some growth, Maanoj, is when we focused on cloud accounting. And we saw the cloud accounting tools a little over a decade start to emerge. And we very quickly leaned into cloud accounting tools because one of the main reasons was we saw the opportunity to say, if cloud accounting tools emerge, that means we can perform the work anywhere. We don't have to go to a client site. And
Right.
so once we no longer, there's a lot of firms today who've just come around who didn't have to go through that migration of a desktop or enterprise environment into a cloud environment. We were one of the ones who did. And as soon as we saw us moving to cloud environments, we realized, well, wait, we can work with clients all across the country. Maybe we can even work with team members, who are not just in Atlanta, Georgia, where Acuity has been headquartered. And so that enabled us to start hiring team members who weren't just in, a few miles from our office. And so once we realized that, we were able to start looking for team members throughout the United States. And that opened up all kinds of possibilities to grow and add team members.
Right.
And then ultimately, it kept going. We thought, well, wait a minute, why stop at the United States? Like, what about team members globally? And so we ultimately got to that point, and that's a place that you and I have spent a good deal of time supporting each other and talking about strategies around global talent. So it moved. It was never that growth was never kind of in a straight line. It was never, it was always doing these kind of things, but there were a couple of big areas like that allowed for us to open up and really increase our scalability. Because again, we wanted to be a firm that could scale, and we knew that demand wasn't a problem.
Sure.
Finding a supply of good accountants, that was the problem.
Sure. What actually triggered the, going global in terms of talent?
So I have a very good friend of mine who I'm very close with, and he and I talk a lot about each other's businesses. Our businesses are very different. I'm very fortunate to have a group of other entrepreneurs who come from many different disciplines who I spend a great deal of time with. And my friend, his business went through an incredibly difficult time. Like, he had essentially a catastrophic event, I won't get into it, that happened in his business. And he basically had to lay off the entire company. And he was trying to let the company survive. And he said, well, I need people. I got to figure out how to do this. And so he started looking on resources like Fiverr and Upwork back in the day, just places where there were contractors. And this was quite some time ago, almost a decade ago. And what he found was he was able to save the company. He was able to save his company by using, contractors. And some of these contractors happened to work all over. And so I was kind of right there with him, trying to help and watching this happen. And what came out of this was not only was he able to kind of bring his company back to life, he became the biggest evangelist I know for saying, oh my gosh, you guys should be looking at these great members who are overseas. And so he encouraged me to look at that. And what we did at Acuity was this is probably 7 years ago, so quite a while ago, we wanted to try it out. And we thought, well, let's just maybe hire 1 or 2 people from overseas and just use them for some small projects. And we did. And we found very quickly that just by dipping our toe in the water a little bit and giving some very specific projects, we found these great team members. Now, we were already at this point, as I mentioned, we had worked ourselves into a remote culture already. We'd already had team members throughout the US. So we were very accustomed to working remote. And so when we added more team members who were also just remote, it actually didn't feel that different to us. It kind of just felt like it normally does. And so once we saw on some small experiments, these experiments we ran, Maanoj, were little things inside the firm. There wasn't client facing. Had them help us with remote work. We very quickly saw the opportunity to say, I think we should expand this even more and look for accounting resources. And what we found very quickly were that there was very good accounting skills from global team members. I think I had thought, well, you probably have to go to a U.S. university and work here in the U.S. to know U.S. accounting, and that was not the case. We found some great folks who knew the same accounting platforms that we work on: QuickBooks Online, Xero, Bill.com, Gutto. They actually knew these technologies, and so we got very excited, and then started kind of making a move to start hiring up more team members internationally. So yes, it was started from a friend's experience, then us running some small internal experiments, and then we started going in very heavy into the Philippines. Whereas today, with Acuity, about a third of our team now work global. Yeah,
Okay.
and so that's mostly in the Philippines, but also in the Caribbean. And they've been excellent team members. And so that's been a very, very important strategy for scaling and for growth for us, is to look at the global workforce, right? Because once you expand and look at the global workforce, you just really open up your possibilities to be able to meet all that client demand.
Right. And how many people you have right now in total? And you said 1/3 is in Philippines or elsewhere.
Yeah, so Acuity is at about 100, just about under 150 employees. So think about a third of those being there. So we have a little over 30 in the Philippines, and just under 20 down in the Caribbean. Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you find any difference in terms of the productivity or efficiency with offshore team versus team member in US?
I think there's always some slight nuances, some slight differences in the way that people work, and that's probably anywhere that could. But I'd say country by country, no, we find that great efficiencies through our team members wherever they are. I think the important thing that we've learned is, if your firm has good processes, has good workflow tools, then you're not limited by country or by culture or geography at all, as long as you've got some good workflows. Certain types of work we've found have tended to work a bit better in certain countries than others. I'll give you an example. I mean, this is how pervasive and important our global team is. So today at Acuity, I mentioned we have those 4 practice lines: CFO, controller, bookkeeping, and tax. We also have all of our internal functions: sales, marketing, IT. So we have all these departments. And today, a global team member works in every single team and every single department at Acuity, with the exception of one place. The only place we don't have a global team member serving is in the CFO practice. Everywhere else, we have global team members serving. And so we found that their competencies and capabilities match up very well with the US team, right? And so there's some differences. I think the CFO one's a little bit trickier. That's tends to be more of a relationship piece. There's some confidence aspects there in training. But otherwise, we found that across the board, we have team members, our team members who, doesn't matter where they live, work in many, many different capacities. So we found very few differences. In fact, we're starting to see even some folks globally work up into more managerial and leadership paths. We do have one team member internationally in the Philippines who's kind of considered part of our leadership team, who's our country manager there. And so we're seeing all kinds of capabilities and also growth opportunities for those international team members. So we view them just like we view our US team members. And there's some nuances here and there, but by and large, I'd encourage most teams to think about your global talent in that exact same way.
Sure. So since Acuity was already a remote culture, so I think that aided offshore team much faster, right? Because
it did.
It doesn't matter, once you are working who's not in office, whether he is in maybe next city or next country, it just doesn't matter.
Right. That's right. It doesn't matter when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
And what made you expand into this global teams? Was access to the global talent? It was easier turnaround, easier hiring. What was it?
Yeah, it was access. It was
Hmm.
being able to increase our bench strength. I know a lot of people think
Hmm.
about it in
Hmm.
terms of, oh, I want to get my cost structure down. That was
Hmm.
never a predominant goal for us.
Hmm.
That can happen. You can get
Hmm.
some margin improvement, some cost savings, but that was never what
Hmm.
the goal for us
Hmm.
was. The goal for us
Hmm.
was we
Hmm.
wanted to be able to serve more clients. There
Hmm.
are so many businesses that need the help of accounting professionals,
Hmm.
and they need, because we know that right now the survival rates for small businesses improves when they
Hmm.
have good accountants working with them.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we care
Hmm.
about helping small businesses. And the best way to do that for us is to have a deeper bench. We need more people to
Hmm.
help serve our clients. And so
Hmm.
that was our goal, is like, how do we
Hmm.
help serve more clients? We had set some internal goals about number of clients we wanted to serve. And we found the only way we were going to
Hmm.
get there is to look at the global
Hmm.
workforce. Um,
Hmm.
it's great that, yeah, a few other things came out of that. Yes. Did we see some margin improvement? We did. That's
Hmm.
great.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
even more important, I'd tell you,
Hmm.
a more important metric that I found was that we found our retention rates
Okay.
higher with our global
Hmm.
team. They tended to
Hmm.
stay along higher. And we
Right.
also do monthly employee surveys, and
Okay.
we do those across the company.
Hmm.
And the self-reported employee happiness is
Hmm.
higher globally than it is in the
Okay.
US. And so
Hmm.
what we saw was our global team members were happier,
Hmm.
and we found that not only was that self-reported, but they
Hmm.
stayed, and they stayed with us longer. And
Retention is
so
that. Yeah. Hmm.
those are great things, right? When you're a business
Hmm.
owner, having
Hmm.
happy employees who want
Hmm.
to stay and work
Hmm.
with you
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
just incredibly
Yeah.
important, way more important than does it cost
Hmm.
less.
Hmm.
So that was for us a great
Hmm.
finding. It's only encouraged us to kind of go
Hmm.
global even
Hmm.
more.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kenji, when I speak to a lot of these firms, who have even scaled up, in the top, 100 or maybe the next 300 firms, I see a lot of these firms have apprehensions about, sending jobs outside US.
Right.
Have a lot of apprehensions about, how the cultural fitment would happen with an offshore teams, or it could be um, how do you even tell your employees that a certain part of the jobs are going to go offshore, and so how do
Right.
you build the confidence within the internal teams about the offshore team?
Yeah. I think the first thing, I mean, change management is incredibly important, and every
Hmm.
firm has to go through it. And this is the
Hmm.
responsibility of the leadership, is change
Hmm.
management.
Hmm.
Um, the best way for an organization or firm to not only just survive but to thrive is by adapting to
Hmm.
change. And so I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
messaging that
Hmm.
to the team, saying, hey, we have to change the way we work with clients. We have to change the types of services we give them. We have to change the
Hmm.
structure of our teams. That's a
Hmm.
natural response to the environments. And
Hmm.
so, one, getting that in everybody's head. And then when you start kind of doing is saying, hey, you run like we did. We ran some experiments with trying working with global team members. And we were
Hmm.
very quick to integrate them right alongside US team members. We never
Hmm.
really wanted to look at them as just purely offshore or just contractors. They
Hmm.
were members of our team that happened to live somewhere else. And
Hmm.
so the work itself always has to stand up, right? And
Hmm.
so we have to make sure that these
Hmm.
global team members, or no matter where you are, your work is supporting
Hmm.
your colleagues. But
Hmm.
beyond that,
Hmm.
then finding ways to be able to build, some cohesion amongst the US team and the
Hmm.
Philippines team for us, or the Caribbean team or
Hmm.
Indian team, no matter where
Hmm.
you work.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we looked for lots of opportunities to actually let people get to know each other. And
Okay.
you mentioned, finding fun ways you
Hmm.
mentioned holidays and things like that. We do that at Acuity, where we celebrate all kinds of holidays in the Philippines and in
Okay.
the Caribbean and the US.
Hmm.
We make sure that we feel very connected and bonded with those colleagues, because Yes, maybe someone doesn't understand the culture in the Philippines or understand their holidays or whatever they may have there. But what people always understand is someone who is a good team member to them, who helps support them, someone who you can still laugh with, share a joke, share a picture of a family member or celebrate someone's birthday. There's so many ways you can actually bond together and build some great camaraderie. And I think that it's very important to start integrating those cultures as soon as you can, because as soon as those walls break down, what you
Right.
realize is these are just people. These are just
Yeah.
people who are just like us. And I had the great benefit, and some of our leadership team does, of we go and we visit, and spend time over in the Philippines or in the Caribbean. And so that makes it very apparent. Once you get there and you're immersed in your team members' culture, you get to know them so well. And they're just a colleague, they're a friend. And that makes it very easy. Now, it's not possible for every Acuity team member to go travel globally like that, or to bring all our global team members to the US. But there are ways. There are ways to go and build camaraderie and build that collaboration. I think
Sure.
once you do that, I think you do have to pay attention to that. You do have to make sure you do that way, because then it demystifies this whole, oh, we're sending work over to some contractor overseas, and it just comes back the next day and they're coming to take my job. And that's not it at all. That's not it at
Yeah.
all. So once you can identify that as, that's my, that's someone who I know, I trust, who's a team member, who might even become a friend, then it just completely changes the dynamic with the team member. And so we've seen some really wonderful ways that our teams have collaborated. We do every year we have an award. Basically, it's the Employee of the Year award, and that award is voted on by all other Acuity
Okay.
employees. And we have had one of our employees of the year be one of our global team members in the Philippines, who was voted over because she was so helpful. She was on our tax team and is so helpful. And that was a great moment for me as a recognition that this was working, that we built a
Right.
culture to where US colleagues and Caribbean
Sure.
colleagues were voting on this person,
Voted for
saying
film. Yeah.
that person
Yeah.
right there represents the
Yeah.
best of Acuity. And I think
Yeah.
that's how but that takes some time. It takes some time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think what your team will do is they will watch the way the leaders interact with those people. So as a leader, it's
Sure.
very important to talk about them, to treat them just like any other colleagues, not as just some
Sure.
offshore team of
Yeah.
contractors. They have to see them as your own team.
Yeah. So the takeaway is that you have to integrate as if it is your team versus the contractors, right? So
Right.
that makes all the
Absolutely.
difference. Tell me, what are some of the practices that you follow to integrate these teams? So you said that not everybody could travel. Though I keep seeing yours and Matthew's photographs that you travel and you put it on the LinkedIn and everywhere, where the whole team is traveling together. So it's really exciting and fun to see that.
It is.
But
It
what are
is.
the other virtual ways in which you could assimilate these teams who are sitting in Caribbean or
Yeah.
Philippines?
So there's a number of ways. I say operationally, like I mentioned, just look at ways that they can participate and be part of your regular teams. And so, because, for example, in our internal IT team or our sales
Mm,
team, we have both
mm,
Philippines team members and US team members in
mm,
each of those teams.
mm,
So they are used to, in their weekly team meetings, they just have, they're all there together, right? So think
mm,
about in your operations where you can integrate team members, and
mm,
just by default,
mm,
they're going to start building some camaraderie and trust. I
mm,
think then you can also do some places to highlight and
mm,
celebrate some of the differences, like, right, because again, we
mm,
on every Monday we send out it's a kind of a week at Acuity, like we talk about, hey, here's what's happening this week. And so if
mm,
there are Philippines holidays, we announce all those and we put a little blurb about what it means and how it's celebrated. And so we give
mm,
some learning out. We actually try to take the differences of cultures and celebrate
mm.
them. And so it's almost a
Right.
way that we can learn
Mm,
about, oh, I didn't know they had this. This is what they
mm,
did in St. Lucia, or
mm,
I
Hmm.
remember this past year, a
Hmm.
woman won I think it was a 100-yard dash at the Olympics, was
Hmm.
from St. Lucia, right? And we all
Hmm.
kind of cheered her on, even though, it was such a big deal to them. So I think there's little
Yeah.
ways you can promote the culture
Hmm.
and share ideas. We've done things like
Hmm.
shared recipes and different things people,
Hmm.
do in each of these cultures there.
Hmm.
We also do some fun Zoom, there's a lot of them out there. A lot of these emerged during COVID, but you can
Hmm.
do whether it's a Zoom happy hour or
Hmm.
Zoom trivia or all
Hmm.
kinds of there are fun things you can do together. It's more
Hmm.
fun when you can be physically together, but there are some fun
Hmm.
activities you can do together as teams. And
Hmm.
so lots
Hmm.
of things around posting
Hmm.
pictures and stuff. And then again, we try to go every year, us as leadership, to go
Hmm.
to the Philippines and the Caribbean and spend time there. And we do
Hmm.
big events with them. We do lots of
Hmm.
posting of pictures back and forth to the US.
Hmm.
And so any way that
Hmm.
you can is great. And I'll tell you,
Hmm.
those memories of spending time in
Hmm.
country with our teams will
Hmm.
be something I cherish forever. Those are some of my
Yeah.
favorite memories of working. And I know I'll have those all of my professional career because
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
just very, very fulfilling when it's someone who you
Yeah.
spent years working with, maybe through a
Hmm.
screen, and you
Hmm.
finally get a chance to meet with them
Yeah.
and have a meal with them, share a beer with
Hmm.
them, sing
Hmm.
karaoke with them, whatever it might be. It's a really, really powerful impact. And so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of ways, even if you can't do it physically, to do it
Hmm.
virtually.
Hmm.
And I think that's the way more and more. There's almost no excuse today.
Yeah.
The world we live in, right, is very virtual, and so we
Yeah.
can build.
Yeah.
If you're intentional about it, you can build a lot of
Yeah.
connections with members.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I understand this. So in fact, in the last year in our scaling new heights, we had a booth, and we had flown in a couple of our team leaders who are managing the portfolio of clients, and in scaling new heights, we have a lot of clients from the wood art community. So they were all flocking for to meet our team leaders. No one was caring about who I am standing there. But no one wanted to meet me actually.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and I was so happy looking at that everybody was flocking around
Isn't that
the
great?
team leaders because they see every day on the screen, as you said rightly, and then they saw them physically, so they just wanted to
Right there
spend
in
time and
person.
stuff like that.
Isn't that great?
It
It's so
was,
fulfilling to
yeah,
be able to do that. And
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
opportunity
Mm,
we have
mm,
as leaders,
mm.
just like you're doing,
Mm,
Manoj,
mm,
is
mm,
you're connecting people, right? You're
yeah,
connecting people and you're being
mm,
a facilitator of relationships. And so I think
yeah,
that
yeah,
brings a lot of joy as leader. If
yeah,
leaders can think about
yeah,
that,
yeah.
there's some great relationship. And it's something
Mm,
about that
mm,
where to
mm,
know
mm,
that you're connected to someone who
yeah,
may be on the other side of the world, I think it's actually pretty powerful. So it's
yeah,
cool that you
yeah,
guys do that
yeah,
at Finsmart.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Kenji, coming to what is the role of maybe processes or in terms of technology that has played to kind of a scale up your offshoring teams? So how it really helped you?
I mentioned it before and I'll say it again and I'll keep mentioning it. The processes are really critical, really,
Mm,
really critical.
mm, mm,
And it's when I hear about people who have had less than optimal offshoring situations, it almost always
mm,
comes down to there weren't clear expectations, there weren't clear
mm,
processes.
mm,
And when you're in an environment like this and you can't sit side by side every day, you have
mm,
to be very,
mm,
very clear in expectations. And
mm,
what I would what I would say is it, that sometimes I'll maybe give a story, I guess, actually, that was helpful to
mm,
me. I
mm,
remember my first trip to the Philippines, and
mm,
I was meeting with a colleague there, and I asked the question, "Hey,
mm,
what could I be doing back in the US just to make your
mm,
job easier?
mm,
Like, what is
mm,
it? Is there anything I could do to help?"
mm,
And they said to me, Kenji, like, if you don't mind, just when you work with us, like, just double check and ask me, like, make sure that I know exactly what I'm doing. I said, well, wait, what do you mean? And he said,
mm,
well, he said, sometimes he said, I'm a little bit afraid to ask a question. Like, if I don't know how to do something, I might just say, okay, yeah, sure thing, I'll do it. I'll do it.
mm, mm,
Even if I don't know. He said, so if you could just ask me, hey, can you repeat back to me what it is what it is I asked you to do? He said that actually, I said, you want me to ask you that? Like, that sounds that sounds strange. And he said, no. He said, what we occasionally are looking for is very, very clear instructions. Like, right? He goes, it
Right.
makes us feel really good.
Yeah.
If we have
Mm,
very clear instructions, it's so
mm,
helpful to us because we don't
mm.
want to, sometimes we're a little nervous to come back and ask you again. He said, so
Right.
either you have very, very clear instructions, or after you give the
Mm,
instructions, just say, hey, Manuj, do you mind? Do you mind? Okay, I gave you the instructions. Can you tell me back real quick what it is you're supposed to do? And
mm,
I think in the US, if I were to ask our US team members, they would get very annoyed with me if I said,
mm.
hey, Kenji, can you tell me again
Yeah.
what I asked you to do? It's just a cultural thing. Whereas our team in the
Yeah.
Philippines said they
Mm,
appreciated that because what they
mm.
really, really want are very, very, very clear directions. And if they're not clear, they want us to help
Mm,
them paint those.
mm,
So
mm.
please, all firm owners, make sure you've got clear processes, that you've got good workflow tools. And
Mm,
even if you don't, what
mm,
I would say is this is your opportunity working with offshore
mm,
is to get them
mm,
refined, to get them clarified. But just
mm,
know that you're going to need to ask a lot of questions. If that makes sense. You're going
mm,
to look for places to where the
mm,
team is
mm,
struggling. If the team is
mm,
struggling on a particular process, what that probably
mm,
means is not that they're
mm,
not good team members. It probably means the
mm.
process isn't defined well enough.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
take the time
mm,
to go back and say, gosh, we keep making mistakes
mm,
here or missing
mm,
this.
mm,
That
mm.
should be an indication that that process needs some more work on your part
Yeah.
as the
Mm,
firm. And so
mm,
make sure you have that
mm.
because you will get much better results and you're going to get much
Mm.
happier people working globally. If
Right.
they have clear,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
love clear
Mm,
expectations. Us in the US,
mm, mm.
I don't really like it when someone tells me what to do. I want high level. I want Manoj. I want you. If
Mm.
you were my boss, I want
Yeah.
you to say, "Hey, Kenji,
Mm.
Kenji,
Ah,
go serve that client well. Great, I will
mm.
go do that.
Ah,
I want it
yeah.
like in general, broad
Mm.
terms, and then I'll
Yeah.
go.
Mm.
I
Mm.
want to go figure it out.
Mm.
That's a little bit different in my experience. Where
Mm.
if I were from the Philippines or maybe another culture,
Mm.
I might want
Mm.
Manoj, you as my boss, to tell me much more specifically, hey, what does it mean to
Yeah.
serve that client well?
Mm.
When should I
Mm.
do it? How should I do it? Whereas in the
Mm.
US, we just like to be a little
Mm.
bit more autonomous. And so
Yeah.
that's a change of
Mm.
thinking that I think we need to have
Mm.
around
Mm.
process and workflow. But if
Mm.
you take it seriously, all you're doing is
Mm.
creating a better workflow system that
Mm.
is more
Mm.
scalable. Because again, this is
Mm.
a scaling strategy. And to scale
Mm.
well, you have to
Mm.
have clear processes and procedures.
Mm.
So
Mm. Mm. Sure. Yeah. A lot of firm owners, has this, perception about the data security, right? So,
right.
data is going out, of the country and stuff like that. So I'm sure you would have, such challenges. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. I think that where we talk about that is look at the tools we're using, right? Our team is
Mm,
working inside tools from Intuit or tools from
mm,
Zero. And
mm,
so what we're leaning on from a security standpoint is
mm,
okay, if they're working inside and if they have to work inside of these tools or Google Suite tools, like we can control those. We can lock down
mm,
permissions.
mm,
We can leverage the security of our tech partners. So I think it's very
mm,
important in this case. Who are your
mm,
tech
mm,
partners you're
mm,
using? Now, I think you do want to have a good IT function to where, well, how do you make sure
mm,
laptops are
mm,
up to date? They have the most
mm,
recent security
mm,
protocols. And there's some good software
mm,
tools out there like
mm,
Practice Protect you can use, or
mm,
just even if you have a good
mm,
administrator
mm,
help you roll these things out, because you want to make
mm,
sure that someone's not working on a
mm.
Windows 95 machine that's got lots of security patches in there. You need to have some opportunity to roll it. But that's no
Mm,
different than if an IT
mm,
administrator is here in Atlanta
mm,
having to make
mm,
sure a laptop's up to date in Kansas City than it is
mm,
in Manila, Philippines. And
mm,
so you
mm,
do need to invest in that, but it's really not
mm,
any different than what you'd have
mm.
to invest in for someone here in the
Sure.
US. And
Mm,
so
mm,
I think what we've typically done at Acuity is showcase that, yes, we have an IT team. We do
mm.
security training across all of our team members. We
Sure.
run
Mm,
internal like phishing, emails and things to train up our team members on good security habits. And we use the best technology tools out there. Again, the likes of Intuit, Xero,
Sure.
and that's what our team is. So we leverage all those, and we're also very clear about what data, which team members work onshore and which teams work offshore, and we disclose that in engagement letters and such. But what we're finding more and more, and this may be some of our clients that we work with. We work with a lot of tech companies. They actually appreciate working offshore because guess what? So much of their company is already offshore. Like we work with these tech companies and they're like, oh yeah, we've got a development team over in over in Romania and some folks down in Argentina. And one of our co-founders lives in Israel. And so they like it. Another accounting firm who also works the same way that they do. So I think the world itself is becoming more global. So the expectations are more that, hey, we're using global team members well too. Please make sure that you're secure and safe with our data, like we should if you're in the US as well. But I think it's becoming so much more common and less of an obstacle these days that someone says, oh no, the only place that's safe is just here in the US. No, it's not. Right? All of our kids use TikTok and things. We use things from software from all over the world. And so just because you happen to reside in the United States does not make it more safe than someone residing in some other part of the world.
Yeah, true that. Yeah. And a lot of times, we keep saying that, if you work with, companies like Finsmart or maybe any other, offshore partner who has a decent size of, people, they would always have the security systems well developed as compared to even the individual practice owners, right? Because they have their own data center, security, IT department, people, certifications and stuff like that, right? So
absolutely. This is one of the things I tell for other firm owners too, when they see that we have a very sizable team, is that we would not have gotten there had we not used partners, great offshoring partners. And so all of the ones we've worked with have been fantastic. And so we're very grateful to all of our partners. Now, we still use some partners. Some of ours now are direct team members overseas, but that all happened through partners because that's a great place to leverage that expertise around security or around, payroll withholdings or different nuances that happen that are just too difficult for us to learn about here in the US. So definitely, I always recommend as you're experimenting and doing this, go through a partner to help you navigate this because it's not easy. It's not easy knowing. They're great team members, but I don't understand exactly how the rice allowance works on payroll in the Philippines or what different withholding taxes are in St. Lucia down in the Caribbean. And so those are the places where partners can help you in a very massive way.
So Kenji, tell us, what's your advice to somebody who's just sitting on the fence, an accounting firm, and they are thinking to offshore and they would have apprehension. So, would they know they are ready?
Well, I think it's again being adaptive. I think if you're a leader, and most people, whether you're the firm CEO, founder, or whether you're leading a practice, or whether you're at a managerial level, you're in a leadership position, and it's very likely that you're already leading or you're getting ready to lead or manage people. And I'd challenge you to think about what would it look like to have a global colleague, a global team member that you might be working with or managing. And so the way to start, I think, would be to find a good partner and maybe say, hey, I want to just try maybe a small contract, just try something small, run a small experiment and say, how would I work with this person? Maybe if this person were to support me as an assistant, or in some way, or as a junior colleague, maybe for a few months and just try it out and see how that works just for you. And so start with something very easy. Think of some small projects, right? Take some very bite-sized small projects. Maybe it's some work in spreadsheets. Maybe it's some data compilation. Maybe it's just some things that are helping you in your day-to-day, following up on client receivables. You can think of a number of things that take up your time. Your time is more valuable as a professional, and say, boy, if I had an assistant to help me with this, this would be great. Try using someone globally. Try outsourcing that. And if you outsource that, then it will open up some opportunities and go, okay, this worked great. And then that may give you the confidence. So start small. Start small with some very discrete projects just for you. Find a trusted, contractor group to help you with that. And just see what it can do for you in small scale. And that's how all scaling opportunities start. You think small, go, okay, I need to create something repeatable. And once you trust that, you go, okay, wait a minute. Now I can see what scaling this up looks like. If I had 10 more of these colleagues, 50 more, 100 more, oh my gosh, our ability to scale just increased exponentially. And so start small, that piece, and then work yourself into exponential, but use it just during very easy little projects you can think of. And that should give someone the confidence to know whether they're ready for it or not.
And then how do you measure the efficiency of this offshore team, so initially when you start?
We look at them just like any other colleague, right? I think, again, in the example I just gave you, one would be in terms of how much time can they give you back, right? And it's not difficult for any, if someone wanted to break down what your effective hourly rate is, or maybe even better, the value of your time, right? Having some time back to be with your family or things like this. And if you had someone, whether it's an assistant or another colleague, to help you with something, think about getting time back, because that's what a good trusted colleague does, is gives you time back. How valuable is that to you? And so if you get a few hours a week back, a number of hours per month back, just in starting small, that's a great way to say, okay, this makes sense. And I think people will find that there is some pretty appealing cost structures to looking at global talent that are just, by the nature of the fact they are somewhere else geographically, there's more team members there than there are in the US, you're going to find some cost savings. And so start just doing some very easy ROI calculations. But I think if you start with, to me, it's always, if you can help save me some time and give me time back, I'm very willing and eager to invest more there. And so start with getting, or someone on your team, maybe look at a team member who you see is just underwater with something. Maybe it's a very manual process and they're just struggling, and say, hey, I'd like to invest in you by getting you some help. And I think I may have found a resource who's willing to help you out. Think about how powerful that would be if you were struggling and a boss came to you and said, hey, Maanoj, I care about you. I think a lot about what you're doing, and I want to give you an assistant and some help. And so we're investing in a team member in India or in the Philippines who is going to do some work directly with you and help you out. I think that'd be a very powerful way you're going to get ROI out of that, measurable or not, that your life just got improved dramatically. So start with something like that, and I think you'll see opportunities for where there's much more benefit you can get out of this global workforce.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to include this point in the return of investments. Right now, the return of investments that we count is generally on the cost saving part of it. But this is a very valid point that, how much firm owners would get their time back, right? And what is the value of that
time back?
Yeah.
That's always a great strategy. I think for selling,
Loved it.
When we're talking about time back, is just it's invaluable.
Absolutely valuable. Yeah. Okay, so coming to the last two questions, Kenji. So, if you had to leave our listeners with one key piece of advice about scaling smarter with offshore strategies, so what would that be?
One piece of advice about scaling smarter with offshore strategies. I think that when you think about the things I mentioned, the improved retention rates, for us, the improved satisfaction or happiness of our offshore team, and just and also the margin, the cost saving, it all makes sense, right? It all in your brain will make sense. However, when you get to, what I can tell you as another firm owner or other accountant, is that when you get to know these people and you get to realize that I have colleagues and now friends in other parts of the world, there's nothing like that from the heart. Like you will be surprised by how close you will become with these people. And that when you marry up all the things with the head that just make sense with the heart of going, oh my gosh, I have, and I got to see that firsthand by going over and visiting and feeling part of a family, essentially. And I try to encourage our team members not to talk that way. Like, hey, no, we're not your family. We're work. Our global team members love to talk about their family and Acuity, and they make us feel that way. And so I would say that you will be, to you, the firm owner who are not sure about this, you will be very, very happily surprised by just the joy you'll get with getting to know and work with people internationally. I think I'm a firm believer in travel, the joys of travel and visiting other cultures. And this is a way to visit other cultures by working alongside them. It will do you a world of good. And I think you'll just be very pleasantly surprised. That's hard to measure. I don't know if you can measure that. But the joy you will get from getting to know other cultures and get to work with folks from around the world is something that surprised me. So I would expect, maybe unexpected, but if you go down this path, you will develop friendships and relationships for life in other parts of the world. Just real joy.
Yes. And you become a better person, when you know different cultures, meet different people from the different walks of life. And it's all about human relations at the end of the day, right? I mean,
it is. It is
about relationships.
It is. For sure.
So what's next for you in terms of Acuity, in terms of the global team growth, or any innovations that you see coming up with artificial intelligence?
The Acuity team is growing like crazy, which is exciting. And I'll tell you one of the things that's next on my most recent trip to the Philippines. One thing I was really happy to do there was we put on an AI workshop with our team there, and we kind of called it an AI hackathon. And so we just had a really, really fun session of, we sat all of our team members down and said, okay, I'm going to give you a few challenges. And we said, first of all, let's make sure, and we did these without any client data or any financial data, but we did some fun experiments with it and said, okay, who can come up with, and we put people in teams. This is all just our Philippines team. And I got to work in teams doing some interesting tasks with AI of like, create a poem about our time together. We went to a beautiful resort in the Philippines on the beach. And so people had to create these poems. And then we said, okay, create a picture using AI of what you think the future of Acuity will look like. So we had all these little competitions of fun things with AI. And this was by design. We wanted people to start using it and seeing it as a tool. And we saw that our offshore global team probably saw the most quick development by using AI. And so I think I'm very, very excited about the combination of the global workforce with AI as a powerful tool. I think if anyone, we can all benefit by using better tools. I actually think our global teams can benefit the most. That's what I experienced when we ran some of these scenarios and these fun days. And so just to see, like members of our tax team who are in the junior members of our tax team in the Philippines learn how to go and access the IRS database in a much more efficient way via chat, like going and asking questions. And it gave them confidence, right? And so a lot of them, we did things like we helped them write some scripts for videos they wanted to send our clients, because English is not the first language of our global team. And so things like AI can help our team get more confidence in the way they deliver messages to clients or insights. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity for AI in global teams. And so I'd really encourage firm owners to look at that. And there's a lot of ways to do it. They can reach out to me. I'd be happy to share more about what we did when we were there in November. But it was really fun too. And the team had a lot of fun on some of these AI challenges, and we had some fun prizes and things like this they could win for the best ones. But they were creative, and again, we found that there were some team members who were a little bit nervous and afraid of AI.
Right.
And this opportunity was one that we took as leadership, saying we don't want people to be afraid of it. We want them to be excited about it. We want them to be curious about it. We want them to use it as a tool. And so, if you can get your teams thinking that way, I think you can see some great, just some great opportunities emerge by the power of technology with team members, but especially global team members.
Sure, yeah. And I think you use two AIs, right? So one is artificial intelligence, second is an Asian intelligence.
That's I stole that from Michael Lee. That's right, Michael Lee, who always likes to say that. Yes, we're using both together, right? That's right.
Absolutely.
Double AI.
Double AI, yeah. All right, Kenji. So it was really nice to chat with you, and thank you for your valuable time and input to our viewers. And I appreciate a lot for coming on this channel, and I thank you for being a part of this Smart Outsourcing Talks. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you and be with you. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thanks.